I'm Brian Becker, and this is my wife Deanna, and we're here basically just to tell our story about how God has impacted our lives. In 1991, I deployed for Desert Storm. Shortly after returning home, Deanna ended up getting pregnant. You know, we weren't married, certainly weren't Christians, and we were both just young. However, I felt at that point that it was right to get married, so we ended up getting married. We stayed together long enough to get pregnant again and have another child. That was Cody, who was born in 1993. We had moved from Tucson up to South Dakota at the time, so we went from a big city with at least some friends and family around to no friends and family whatsoever. Basically, it all fell apart from there. That was, I think, by January of '94, we were separated. There was about a 3-year period that we were on again, off again, and it was, you know, a couple weeks here and there. Essentially, in the last year, we didn't even speak to each other. Instead of doing things to try and fix that, though, I got angry. I was very upset, and I don't know where my mind was going at the time. I know my heart was stone cold hard. But I thought, you know, I took it very personally.
We were both upset because we wanted a family. We wanted to be a family, and he wanted that for me, and I wasn't providing that, and I wanted to be that, but didn't know how, didn't have what it took.
In that last year, the beginning of that last year, we had gone to court, and the divorce was final. It was, the only thing that happened was Deanna didn't pay her fees to the court, so the judge decided not to sign it.
During our separation, I was drinking, I was using drugs, I was out trying to figure things out on my own. So I was searching for a lot of things, and eventually that landed me in jail because I was using drugs and alcohol as a means to just fill up the emptiness I had, and just as trying to seek God. I think now I look back and I realize that it was emptiness that only He could fill.
I was very selfish with the kids. I felt like one way to punish her for doing this to our family was to essentially use the kids against her. There was one time in particular where I'd been in the local grocery store, very small grocery store, you know, maybe 10 aisles. Deanna had come in, so there's just no getting away from each other, you know, in these little places like this. I don't remember off the top of my head exactly how it had begun, but at some point I had gotten angry while she was in there. I do remember saying things like, you know, to my daughter, who was only a couple years old at the time, you know, hey, why don't you go try and find a new mom, to other people in the store, which was, you know, looking back, that was really, I mean, those are really just pretty low moments, and I mean, that wasn't the only thing that happened, and that certainly wasn't that wasn't even the worst of what I had said to her in public places. We were in a small town. Everybody knew what was going on. You know, it was one of those towns where the whole place would stop at 9 o'clock, and there was, I think, 3 different places that you would go to coffee, so you were part of one of those 3 groups. And
we were the talk of the town.
It was, yeah, we were the talk of the town. I mean, it had gotten to the point where the one police officer in town had come to me and said, "Brian, you got to chill out. If we could go back to that little town right now and walk into one of those coffee times, holding hands and saying we've been back together since 1997 and that we're now Christians, I think, yeah, I think you'd see a lot of spilt coffee."
You know, I became a Christian. I had found a church home and was just trying to build a relationship with God, trying to learn what the Bible said and how did that apply to me. I was in my Bible and I was studying some things out. I was studying about what it meant to be a Christian and came across God hates divorce. And I was mad. I didn't want to be divorced, but I didn't want to be married to Bryan. We had tried that, it had failed. And I remember just a sinking feeling that if I was to please God, that I could not get divorced. And I remember just thinking, fine, you know, if this is what it's going to take to please God, fine, I'll do it. But I was very irritated by it. I was very, just like a toddler throwing a tantrum, you know. Fine, I'll do it, but it's not going to be good, you know. And I remember thinking even, hopefully I don't have a long life because it's going to be miserable. And I think that I, at that time, just failed to see that God doesn't want us to be unhappy, that He has bigger plans and that He has the ability to change us from the inside. And it turned out to be a really good thing. But I think that it's funny looking back that I really thought that God wanted me to be miserable.
Deanna is the one that brought me to God. I mean, that was just seeing these changes in her. You know, one of the brothers that was in leadership had come to me and said, you know, Deanna wants to try and reconcile your marriage. And I remember thinking, what in the world? I think it was a day later, she moved back in. The first year was a whirlwind, but it was, you know, with those, without God in our lives, it would have been 2 weeks.
Yeah, it would have been the same old thing.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of work in reconciling. There was, I don't want to minimize that at all, but the joy that was brought into our lives, I think, just by becoming believers and by seeing what Jesus had done for us and by putting our own selfish thoughts behind us and realizing, you know what, this guy hung on a cross and died. I mean, he died for us.
I think it meant a lot to me to know that all of the things that I had done to Bryan, that not only could he forgive me because of the cross, but knowing that I could be forgiven. The grace was overwhelming, just kind of coming in contact with the cross. Just learning to be a wife, learning to be a mom, being okay with the fact that I didn't know how to do those things on my own. I didn't have the power within me to do that, but that there was power that I could get from God, from the Word, and that I could be those things.
The last thing I would want anybody to think is just because we did become Christians and we did reconcile, that life has been peaches and cream. Our struggles in that haven't stopped. In fact, I think sometimes they've even gotten more intense. There's a lot of struggles that are in people's lives, and it's not just marital struggles. I mean, we've had a lot of things just happen.
Life.
You know, just life in general, whether it's medical issues that Deanna's having or, you know, our son-in-law who just got back being injured in Afghanistan. I mean, those are all things that we have continued to have to lean on God through.
When people would ask, I dreaded having to tell our story, having to tell that we were separated, that I had left my kids, and I always felt like people were going to judge me and look down on me for that. And so as I started sharing these things, you know, one question at a time, because I didn't give more information than I was asked, eventually someone said to me, "What a testimony to God." And it clicked that it wasn't about me. It wasn't about my shame. It wasn't about my past. It was about God and just His power, and that He did amazing things for us, things that we couldn't have done on our own. And there was no doubt when people would hear these things that it was God, it was Him.
We've been given this great gift in our lives, just this gift of reconciliation in our marriage, 3 new kids since that reconciliation. We were given this gift just the same way that we were given the gift of Christmas through Jesus. That was God's gift to the world. Some of you are going to think that's hokey, and I get that, but the fact is that Christmas is way deeper in my household than just some presents under the tree. I mean, this is truly a gift that God has given to my family. I mean, through Jesus and through this day that we celebrate. It's very important for us to remember that.